Hey guys, it's Kennedy. Welcome back to my channel. And today's video I'm going to be telling you guys the story of how I broke out into hives, and this is also kind of an explanation as to why I didn't post for such a long period of time. I know it was only 3 weeks-ish, but that's almost in like an entire month, and I've been wanting to actually post videos like weekly, so that there's a bigger explanation kind of for that. Let's just go ahead and get on into the video. So I didn't really want to share this with you guys at first, which is kind of why I'm like waiting. I waited a little bit to tell you guys, because I was pretty embarrassed about this story because it just didn't seem like it was a very common thing that would happen to a lot of pregnant women and stuff. But I looked it up and it happened to a lot more people than I thought, and I don't know, I felt really embarrassed about it. You'll understand what I mean after I explain it all. Right about the time that I like got into my 3rd trimester, I started getting like super itchy, like on my stomach, kind of in between my legs, like not my vagina, but like at the top of my legs, in between them. So like my inner thighs kind of, I started getting itchy there, and I started getting itchy like on my boobs and my chest. I just kind of just started getting itchy everywhere. And I told my mom about it, and she was like, well, that's all the places that your skin is stretching and where you're growing, because like my thighs are getting bigger, like my upper thighs are getting bigger because everything's growing down there, and my stomach's growing, and my boobs are obviously going to grow. So I was just really nervous about why I was getting so itchy everywhere, and she was like, you're just growing, it's fine. I totally trusted my mom, and because she's a nurse, she knows what she's talking about. That's what happened. And then one day I kept getting itchy in like very specific spots. So it started kind of going away from like my boobs and my stomach and my thighs, but I started getting very itchy right underneath my left boob, just there. Like, I don't know why, it was just super itchy there. So every day I had looked at it, and it was kind of like a little red mark. And it was just a little tiny red circle, and it almost looked like a burn, but it was actually just kind of, I thought that it was just me itching it, obviously, because in my sleep I itch too. When I'm awake, I try not to. Oh my gosh, what are you? Sorry, he's like flipping in my stomach right now. Anyway. Way to get me off topic. So it was like this little red circle, and I thought maybe it had just developed from me itching it so much, because during the day I had tried not to itch it, and my mom was like, don't itch it, you'll just make it more red and more irritated, so just try not to itch it. So during the day I hadn't really been itching it, no matter how badly it started to itch. But I obviously couldn't really help if I itched it in my sleep, because in my sleep obviously I'm not thinking about it. Like it's kind of something you do in your sleep naturally. But one day my mom had like a couple of her best friends over, and keep in mind, all of my mom's friends are all nurses, and they're all home care nurses and very overprotective, and they're very protective of me because they kind of see me as like a second daughter and stuff. So they're constantly checking up on me and constantly like, are you okay? Is everything going good? Is baby okay? So like every little tiny thing I will say, like if I'm just like, man, like if I were to just go like, ooh, they're like, what was that? Like they respond so quickly to things like that. I was in the bathroom and I was just like, man, this is so itchy. So I look at it and it's super red, and it's gotten pretty big. It's about the size of like maybe a quarter is about how big it got. And it was right underneath my boob, like I said. So like on my rib cage, and with how big my boobs are, you kind of could only see it if you lifted up my boob. Sorry to get a little TMI, but that's the only way you'd be able to see it. So I went out there and I had this kind of look on my face, and my mom was like, what? And I was like, look at this. So I lifted up my shirt and I showed them, and they were like, oh my gosh. And I was like, what? And one of them goes, that's ringworm. And I was like, what the hell is ringworm? What is that? That sounds disgusting. I looked it up, and ringworm is actually just a skin irritation. It's nothing super serious or anything. But it did need to be treated, because obviously if I don't treat it, it could get worse, and eventually at some point it could harm the baby in some way or something like that. So basically I needed to get it treated no matter how badly it looked or anything like that. One of them was like, well, I have all my nursing stuff here, so why don't I just go get you something? And I was like, okay. So they went to the store and they came home, and I just went up and took a shower because I wanted to, you know, get all clean if she was going to treat it or something, because she, like I said, she does home care, so she has like tons of supplies already like with her pretty much all the time. So they get home and they're like, we went to Walgreens, we got you ringworm cream, you need to put this on twice a day. Basically they put it on and then they tape a gauze pad over it so that it kind of stays on. And at first that had been working pretty well, like it was helping, but it didn't seem to be going away. And after a couple weeks, I noticed that it just was not going away. It felt like it was getting worse, and it turns out the tape from taping on the gauze pads every single day, twice a day, had started irritating my skin. So at some point I just had a rash all over me, and I will insert a couple pictures if I can. I really don't want to show my underboob, so I'm going to try and insert some pictures that I have of it without showing my underboob if I have any. So I'll insert those somewhere on the screen at some point during the video so that you guys can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. Was starting to get very stressed out because I was like, I'm getting bigger, it's getting harder for me to like move around and do all these things. I don't want to have to take care of this ringworm as if I have some deep cut, you know, like I'm cleaning it and wiping it down and then putting cream on it twice a day. It kind of just started to get very frustrating and very old. And I looked it up and it said that it would take about sometimes up to 4 to 6 weeks to get rid of ringworm completely. So I was very frustrated. I was crying like all the time just because it was so frustrating to me. But I kept doing what I needed to, and at one point I even went to the ER because I was really worried. I wanted to make sure it was ringworm and not something worse because it hadn't been going away after about 2 weeks. And so my mom was like, I don't think there's anything you need to worry about, but if you need to, go to urgent care and check on it. So I went to urgent care, and I also had ended up getting a flu shot there anyway, so it really wasn't a big deal that I was going to the ER. They looked at it, they said that it's ringworm, and they prescribed me a stronger cream to use on the ringworm if I needed to, but they said to just only actually get it if like the ringworm got worse after about 2 more weeks or if it wasn't getting better. So I just kept doing what I was doing. And then a couple days later, at this point, TJ and I were staying at his grandma's because, like I told you guys before, we had been staying at TJ's grandma's because our carpet and paint were getting redone in our house. So yeah, I obviously couldn't really be here for that. We were staying at his grandma's house, and I went and took a shower, and I get out and I'm kind of noticing like a bunch of red spots all over my boobs mostly, and then a little bit on my stomach. But I noticed that I had hives all over me. They were all over my boobs, starting to get on my stomach, a couple on my arms, a couple on my legs. So I was really freaking out at that point. And I told my mom, and a couple weeks prior to that, we kind of noticed red spots starting to appear every now and then. Like she'd look at my chest and be like, are those hives? And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, do they itch? And at the time they hadn't, so I was like, no. So she hadn't been too worried. But then I told her that they were really bad all over and starting to spread. So she was like, okay, you need to message your doctor. And they told me to come in the next day, like as early as they could get me in. So I went in for my appointment, and he looked at it and he was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what this is. He was like, I think you're just having hives breaking out from something. I don't know what it could be. But yeah, because I told him, totally forgot to mention this earlier, so this video probably won't even really make sense because I'm really out of whack explaining all this. I'm sorry guys, bear with me. But we figured out that the ringworm was most likely from my cat, because typically you get it from animals because, you know, they're out in the dirt and they're out playing with bugs and all of that, so we don't know what kind of germs they're getting. So my mom thought that it was passed to me from my cat, especially because my cat had been playing a lot with mice, and obviously it's a lot easier for pregnant women to catch certain illnesses and stuff like that. So we figured it was from my cat, and so I just had been told to stay away from her while you were treating the ringworm. So at night we have to like lock her out of my room. It kind of sucked because she really didn't understand why I wasn't giving her any attention, and she's obviously been my cat since she was a kitten, so she was really confused. And it kind of sucked. Like, I know she's just a cat, but it sucked because I wasn't able to give her any attention or explain to her why I wasn't able to give her attention, which kind of sucks. But yeah, so I had to stay away from her. I kind of had to stay a little bit away from the dogs. So going to TJ's grandma was very helpful for us anyway, because we wouldn't be near animals or anything like that, so it would just be a lot easier to clear things up and stuff like that. So when I went to my doctor, he said that it was hives, and he prescribed me a medication to go on and stuff like that. He wasn't too worried about it. He just said he was very confused as to how or why I got it, because I hadn't been doing anything wrong. He said that nothing that had been happening was my fault. The ringworm wasn't my fault. The hives were not my fault. He said there was nothing I could have done to prevent that, and he thinks that it was just kind of my skin being very sensitive to something, like it could just be allergies. So he wasn't worried, and he prescribed me a medication and told me to just keep applying that ringworm cream and stop applying it once it goes away completely. So yeah, that is that. So I didn't want to film any videos. The allergy pills, I definitely got very drowsy, and I had to take oral Benadryl as well. So I was very drowsy, so tired all the time. I was very out of it. So that is why I didn't film any videos for a good while. And then I obviously, once it went away completely, that's when I decided to film again. And it just so happened to be around the time of the maternity photo shoot that they all went away completely. So that is that. I stopped using the Benadryl and the allergy pill that I had to take not that long ago because it all went away completely. But yeah, so it's all gone now, obviously, because you guys saw in my previous video I showed you my bump and stuff. There's no red marks or anything, just stretch marks. It went away entirely. But yeah, that is all I have for you guys today. That is the scary story time that I've had while I'm pregnant. So yeah, that is all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys.